Good morning. This is Thursday, June 11th, 2025, and this is Dr. Casas. So, as I adjust the camera here, this video is all about mentoring Tulsi Gabbard. So, Miss Gabbard, I've watched your video on Hiroshima, and I've got a couple of concerns, some mentoring, and a way ahead. So first, you make a great point at the end. If you think that that there's some warmongers in Washington, D.C., if it's not classified, then put it out on your channel. You know, the who, what, where, when, why, and how. You know, one paragraph with 5 sentences, more commonly referred to as an executive summary. If you have obtained some sort of classified material, then you need to go to the president. You need to get 15, 30 minutes with the president, get on the calendar as soon as feasible, depending on on how critical the information is. And you need to present it to the president and everyone else who needs to know. That's how you manage the issue if you think there are warmongers who are trying to lead us to World War III. However, that's not what you did. You know, you showed these images of Hiroshima. You talked about your trip to Hiroshima, and the implication is that dropping nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki was wrong. And so this is where your mentoring begins. So, very brief chronology of World War II on why dropping the bombs were absolutely necessary. So, Japan invades China. I invite you to read The Rape of Nanking, which in one sentence basically means they raped all the women, killed all the men. Japan is the only nation to successfully invade China. They kidnapped thousands of Korean women and used them as sex slaves for their soldiers. And somehow they changed the name to comfort women. They attacked Pearl Harbor. They then invaded the Philippines a few weeks after. And the Philippines fell on April 9th of 1942. I was in the Philippines on April 10th this year for their Day of Valor. And so there's a number of things that are critical in your misguided assessment. So after the American and Filipino forces fell, began the Bataan Death March. I've been to Kilometer Zero. I've taken the Bataan Death March road all the way to San Felipe. Hundreds, somewhere between 500 and 650 Americans were massacred if they could not keep up. And for those 6 days, they were denied food and water. And if they lagged behind, they either got bayoneted to death or they were shot. They estimate that there were between 5,000 and 10,000 Filipinos who were massacred on the Bataan Death March. So I encourage you to actually visit history. But it only gets worse. In San Felipe, they were herded into these small boxcars. And if you go to my YouTube channel, I've got one. I've literally got one. I've videotaped it, plenty of photos. They stuffed Americans in there in these boxcars to take them up to Camp O'Donnell, which was a prisoner of war camp that Americans and Filipinos died of suffocation in these boxcars. At Camp O'Donnell, prisoner of war camp, thousands of Americans died due to abuse, lack of food and water, and lack of medical aid. And lest you forget, Japan had decided to force us to do island hopping from Honolulu, all the way to Tokyo Harbor. So by this time, their strategy was to inflict maximum casualties. And this is where you completely reach an erroneous conclusion on using nuclear weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. If you had studied Operation Coronet, which was the actual plan to take Tokyo Harbor and march up to the palace and demand that the emperor surrender. Our estimates, and this is where everyone uses the number 1 million, but no one knows where this 1 million casualty number comes from. Well, this 1 million losses of American losses, where this comes from is the estimates from Operation Coronet. So but before I go on, I'm going to take a step back. In addition to Bataan and Camp O'Donnell, have you visited the American Cemetery in Manila, as I have? Again, I refer you to my YouTube channel. Explain to the dead there the 17,000 crosses at the American Cemetery in Manila that the 2 nuclear bombs were not necessary. Explain at the memorial to the 37,000 names of fallen men and women that stopping the war via 2 nuclear bombs was not necessary. Explain to the Filipinas who were forced as sex slaves in Manila that the nuclear bombs were not necessary. Let me clarify this. Right now, Japan is a wonderful country. They're wonderful allies, wonderful people, wonderful culture. And during World War II, they were absolute savages. And that estimate from Operation Coronet of losing another 1 million American lives to stop the war via conventional means, that is absolutely not acceptable to me. And the part that you most forget, Miss Gabbard, is that Japan was in full cahoots and support of Adolf Hitler. So the 2 nuclear bombs on Hiroshima on June 6th of 1945 and Nagasaki on June 9th of 1945, they were necessary to save American lives and stop World War II. In closing, join me. Let's go to Manila. I'll meet you there. I'll walk you through the American cemetery. I'll take you to Bataan, where the Americans and Filipinos fell. I'll take you to kilometer 0 all the way to San Felipe. I will take you to the Camp O'Donnell prisoner of war camp. I'll take you to Midway. Let's go to Midway together. If you can get funding, I live here in the Los Angeles area and the 31st Congressional District. If you can get the funding, we'll get kids from this area to join us, and so we can teach them about wonderful American history and why America is the most wonderful country on the planet, and the history, and the entirety of world history. And Ms. Gabbard, I'm a big fan of yours, but by beginning that video the way you began it, I think you made a grave mistake historically. I think your last point is valid, and I've already addressed that. Again, in closing to all of you, my name is Dr. Pedro Antonio Casas, Colonel, United States Army, retired.